there we go. Thank you to our sponsors. I'm going to blow through some of this a little bit. Please use the Q&A if you're on virtual. I will do my best to try to take as many of those questions as possible. We are recording and we will be providing that recording as well as the presentations. That is always a question. When in the room, if you're asking a question, please go to a mic. There will be a mic on the side of the room here and speak loudly. If you want continuing legal educations or other PE, CFM, APA, or AICP credits, please sign in the back of the room. Attorneys, you've got to swear that you were here. There's a verification form, and I will be giving out a code, so please pay attention. Because for some reason, the courts don't trust attorneys. Come on. Here are our speakers. Anika, unfortunately, has to be remote, so we're going to go with her first. And since we are running a bit late, I'm going to blow by the bios. The bios are in the program. We have wonderful people who are giving up their time. Please read their bios. Come on. That's, all right, there should be one that says all. All right, Anika, while we bring up the slides, why don't you, oof, no one needs to see me. God. Again, federal, state, and DRBC here. Attorneys sign in the back. It is not a conference without a snafu. All right. All right, Anika.
I'm working on it. I'm a Teams girl. Here we go. Here we go. Okay.
Turn it off to you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here with you all today, albeit virtually. I just think it's so wonderful for all of us to come together. Everyone is so dedicated to wetland and watershed protection and planning, and it just feels really great to be part of this community. So today I would like to speak with you about the efforts that the Division of Watershed Protection and Restoration has been doing in terms of capacity building to encourage our partnerships. Once again, my name is Anika Andrews, and I'm the Director of the Division of Watershed Protection and Restoration, which is a part of the Watershed and Land Management Program at NJDEP. The department has prioritized increasing capacity for climate resilience, and we understand that the work that to undertake the efforts in furtherance of our goals requires partnership. And subsequently, with the support of our federal partners and under the Commissioner's leadership, we have worked to foster partnerships on the municipal and grassroots levels using funding, technical guidance, and development of web-based applications. And I'm happy to share some of the efforts that we have been working on with you all today. So the Division of Watershed Protection and Restoration consists of 4 unique elements, all with a nexus to watersheds. So the first bureau element that is in our division is the Bureau of Watershed Management, which focuses on the protection and restoration of our natural resources on several fronts. This Bureau houses the Endangered and Threatened Species Unit, the Mitigation Unit, to ensure that there is no net loss of our riparian and wetland resources, and that are protected through the freshwater and coastal and Flood Hazard Area Control Act rules. And then we have the Water Quality Restoration Grant Unit, which fosters the prevention of non-point source pollution through annual grant funding programs. We have the Bureau of Tidelands Management, which protects the state's interests in tidelands, which are held in trust for the people of the state. And this bureau works in conjunction with the Tidelands Resource Council to ensure that public trust rights, such as public access and future needs of the state, are protected. We have a Bureau of Flood Hazard and Stormwater Engineering. The Bureau of Flood Hazard and Stormwater Engineering regulates new and redevelopment via the implementation of regulations designed to prevent exacerbation of flooding and ameliorate flood damage potential and prevent degradation of water quality via the implementation of our flood hazard rules. And last but not least, we have the Bureau of Najipti's Stormwater Permitting and Water Quality Management. This bureau manages and oversees water management programs, initiatives, including municipal stormwater, the Water Quality Management Planning Group, and industrial stormwater. Together, these groups work with local governments to ensure that they understand the critical nexus between local land use decisions and local water quality. The division is integral in achieving the department's overall resilience goals. The division is responsible for determining how we manage the state's floodplains and stormwater, and also how we allocate funds for the restoration of our watersheds or the anticipated increase in the state's tidelands due to increased tidal flooding. Over the course of the past few years, with the help of our federal partners, the department has offered a very rigorous funding regimen. And through our performance partnership agreement with EPA, we receive an annual funding to provide pass-through grants for the purpose of water quality improvements. EPA is one of our larger funding sources that we make available to the public. We have EPA 319H funding, which is intended to be used for planning and implementation. And we have the EPA 604B funding, which is simply for planning. And then we get extras. So the federal government has been very generous, and we've gotten significant amount of funds for the American Rescue Plan. And then corporate business tax from the state's taxes are also used to foster the funding programs that we have. I thought it was important, since I mentioned certain funds are used for planning and others are used for implementation, to provide you with some examples of what is planning versus what is implementation. And it's very important when we set up the RFPs that you're applying for the right type of funding source or activities. So planning would include something such as the development of watershed plans within a water region, or the development and implementation of lake protection plans and watershed plans, including updates to existing approved plans statewide to address nutrient inputs which contribute to HABs. An example of implementation would be the implementation of approved watershed plans addressing current designated use impairments and TMDL allocations to improve water quality, green infrastructure projects and OBCs, and climate change resilience projects, including nature-based solutions, which would also include things like living shorelines or the implementation of GI projects that reduce the impact of climate change and promote climate resilience given the increasing storm intensity, temperature, and sea level rise. So some of the funding programs that we've had over the course of the past year or so, we issued a lakes management RFP, which was ARP funded. That was approximately $10 million. We had our annual 319 and 604B RFP, which we are currently working on the priorities for that, and that is for $2.8 million. The stormwater management grant program, which was ARP funded, also $7 million. And that RFP focused on priorities including planning for stormwater opportunities, impervious removal and restoration, basin retrofits, and green infrastructure. And then we partnered with the Crow Shop, and we did a stormwater utilities feasibility study in which we had approximately 30 entities which applied, and we selected 15. And understanding that municipalities don't always have the capacity, what we did is they just provide the information and we pair them up with selected contractors, and through that coordination process, the contractors complete the feasibility study on behalf of the municipalities. Overall, our funding for watershed planning and management in 2023, again, we received $2.8 million in our annual 319 funding allocation from EPA. And again, this can be used for planning and implementation. We received our 604B funding in the amount of $300,000, and that can only be used for planning. We received about $948,000 in bill money, and this can also only be used for planning, and this includes emerging contaminants projects. And then CBT monies, we had $23 million, and we use this for stormwater feasibility studies. And this funding source is something that is not guaranteed, is by the commissioner priorities. $6 million. Crow Shop is in
The wonders of modern technology. Oh, Anika, you're back?
I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, where did I lose you guys? I'm sorry.
About 30 seconds or so ago.
Okay, so I thought it was important to have, I was just talking my heart out too, just so you know, Mike, it was the best. So I thought it was important that I provide you with some of the locations for the resources that we have available. This is a screenshot of our grants funding page. So when you go on here, you can see what projects that we funded. You can find out different priorities that we may be funding at any given time. I encourage you all to check on this resource regularly because we do offer new funding sources all the time. The contacts for funding.
Anika, you stopped sharing.
Oh, no.
You dropped everything.
Okay, hold on. I apologize.
No, that's all right. You know, in the interest of time, if we have some additional time, come back to you as you pull that back up. Does that make sense?
Sure. I think I may have it now.
Okay.
Am I back?
Yes.
Okay. So Catherine Schaefer is the manager of the watershed grants, and she handles the water quality restoration grants. Gabe Mahan, who is also at the conference, is managing the stormwater management aspects. and I think I'm running out. So I can just talk through and you can share the slides later on. But we also released an EPA Region 2 funded mitigation technical manual. The technical manual is available on our website. It's an excellent resource that provides you with information on mitigation and how to conduct your mitigation as if you were going through the permitting process. But I also find that it's an excellent resource for technical pieces, how to conduct your project, how to do your sampling, how to do your evaluation of your projects. And so I would encourage those of you who are working on ecological restoration projects to also utilize that tech manual as a resource because it really gets to the heart of what we're looking for as a department when we're looking at restoration. And then lastly, my colleague Bob Schuster is also giving a talk today, but we have the Watershed NJ web-based application that we are looking to put out in starting in June 2024. That's our target date. And I don't want to steal Bob's thunder, but I also provided some contact information for Bob should you have follow-up questions with regard to the Watershed NJ. And that's it.
Nika, appreciate it. Again, with the modern world, it's nothing but technological issues sometimes. I would like next to introduce Rick Bala from EPA Region 2. He's going to be talking about the federal perspective. And I'm going to take this opportunity, again, if you're an attorney, we don't trust you. Your code is 0223. 0223, as in today. All right, Rick, thank you.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Rick Bala, and I'm the supervisor of the Watershed Management Branch in EPA's New York City office. Our regional office covers New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and 8 federally recognized Indian nations. I manage the Watershed Management Team, which works to protect estuaries, freshwaters, and wetlands. It's an honor to be speaking with you this afternoon. I want to thank the Watershed Institute for organizing today's panel and for this incredibly important conference. And it really covers some of the most pressing environmental issues facing our communities, states, and nation. I also want to acknowledge and thank the other speakers participating in this session, my colleagues Anika Andrews of NJDEP and the Delaware River Basin Commission Executive Director, Steve Tambini. I'm also pleased that 2 of my EPA colleagues are here today, Donna Sambulakana and Michael Flood. Donna and Mike coordinate our non-point source pollution control programs, and they're speaking about that program in a concurrent session upstairs. And of course, I just want to thank all of you. What's being accomplished by all of you on behalf of the environment and your communities is absolutely critical. So this is no ordinary time at EPA. Historic legislation, namely the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, have resulted in an unprecedented amount of funding for all our work at EPA. And I promise, I think that's the last time I'm going to use the word unprecedented today, but I'm going to use some other superlatives. To meet this moment, we need all hands on deck and everyone working together, especially in leveraging opportunities for the benefit of communities. You play an integral part in EPA's work to tackle the climate crisis while connecting with every neighborhood and genuinely integrating environmental justice and equity into water projects. So I thank you for stepping up during this historic time. When you consider the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act together, EPA has been tasked with investing a combined $130 billion, yes, that's billion with a B, in the health, equity, and resilience of American communities. As a result of the Justice 40 initiative, which is advancing environmental justice and equity by ensuring that federal agencies work with states and local communities to deliver at least 40% of the overall benefits from federal investments to disadvantaged communities. 40% of that $130 billion will be invested directly in communities who have long borne the burden of pollution and environmental injustice. An initial cohort of Justice 40 pilot programs are already working to maximize the delivery of benefits to disadvantaged communities across the country. And many federal agencies are currently developing brand new programs to ensure equity. Justice 40 is a critical way to ensure legislation like bill, IRA, and other major sources of fundings are being delivered with equity and to populations who are most desperately in need of these resources. This is a massive opportunity to change the way government operates and who it serves, to create a rising tide that truly lifts all boats. Communities who have previously fought for a seat at the table, who've struggled to have their voices heard and concerns addressed, they deserve the assurance that EPA has their back, so we are working to better listen and deliver for them. Through our local community partners, we are working to ensure community voices are heard and their concerns are addressed as we make these critical decisions that will impact our country for generations. For far too long, decisions affecting low-income and communities of color have been made without sufficient input from the very stakeholders whose decisions directly are impacted the most. In EPA Region 2, we established a new organizational unit called our Community Engagement and Environmental Justice Team to meet these communities where they are and coordinate and help ensure that they're hearing from the communities what is needed to help them. We're excited to have created this group, and it's our vision that they will build partnerships that will result in real changes for communities across our whole region. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, or bill, provides EPA with a groundbreaking, once-in-a-generation infusion of $60 billion in overall funding, and $50 billion of that is specifically to improve water quality. When this law was first passed, my colleague at EPA said, hey, we got $50,000 million for water projects. And being a good engineer, I had to take out a piece of paper and write down 50,000 million, which is indeed $50 billion, but 50,000 million sounds like an awful lot of money, and it truly is. These funds are going to programs we know are successful. Almost $12 billion will be provided through the Clean Water State Revolving Fund, which addresses our wastewater infrastructure needs, including $1 billion to address emerging contaminants such as PFAS and PFOA. Over $30 billion will be provided through this Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Funds. $15 billion of this is dedicated to identifying and removing lead service lines, and $4 billion is directed to addressing emerging contaminants. An additional $5 billion will be available to address emerging contaminants to disadvantaged communities. So a significant portion of this funding is specifically meant for communities that have not traditionally been able to benefit from SRF funding. Nearly half of the bill funding going through the state clean water and drinking water SRFs must be given as grants and as forgivable loans. And almost $2 billion will be provided to 12 federally recognized geographic programs, including the 28 designated estuaries of national significance. And the watersheds of 3 of these estuaries of national significance are wholly or partially right here in New Jersey: the Barnegat Bay, New York, New Jersey Harbor and Estuary, and the Delaware Estuary. Now I'm just going to give some specific numbers for New Jersey. Since the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law was passed in 2021, we've really accomplished a lot. Bill is the largest investment in the health and safety of our environmental future in several generations. Here in New Jersey, we're investing these real dollars to assure our most effective water programs are getting every resource they need to continue their vital work. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law provides tremendous opportunities to support water infrastructure, including funding that will help in replacing lead service lines and controlling sewage These are concerns in many communities. We estimate that New Jersey will receive almost $1 billion from EPA for clean water and drinking water in their loans over the life of the bill. New Jersey has already received $134 million in bill funding to support drinking water infrastructure. This supplements approximately $9 million in regular funding to the state SRF and is in addition to the $108 million New Jersey received in 2022. And New Jersey is anticipated to get $138 million this year in bill funding and $9 million in regular drinking water SRF funding. I just want to move on to sewage infrastructure, and to tackle these sewage issues, EPA has already awarded $94 million of bill funding to New Jersey to supplement $31 million that was awarded in the existing SRF grant of 2023, and this is in addition to the $120 million New Jersey received in 2022. And this year, New Jersey should get over $102 million plus $31 million in regular SRF funding. With the bill, New Jersey is also slated to get $5 million in the additional grants for what we call the Clean Water Act Section 604B grants, which Anika mentioned earlier. This federal Clean Water Act program provides funding for water quality management planning activities, and then in turn, a portion of that is passed through to regional public planning and interstate organizations. This is again a historic increase in 604B fundings because it's tied to bill authorizations, and it provides a great opportunity for states to invigorate water quality planning programs. In addition to funding provided by the bill, it provides states the opportunity to address the pressing modern challenges head-on by folding equity, environmental justice, and climate considerations into overall planning efforts. Through bill, EPA's national estuary programs are also receiving a notable increase to their funding for the 5 years of the bill. Just down the road from here is the Delaware River, and we're in the Delaware Estuary Watershed. Each estuary program, including the Delaware, Barnegat, and New York, New Jersey Harbor, will receive an additional $909,000 each of the 5 years of the bill to help them accelerate and more extensively implement their management plans, prioritize projects, and benefit disadvantaged communities, and to build adaptive capacity of ecosystems and communities and leverage and support additional resources. As I mentioned, there are 3 estuary programs in New Jersey. Most of New Jersey falls within the boundaries of one of the estuary programs, so I encourage you, if you're not already doing so, to please engage with these programs on the tremendous work that they're doing. I also want to share a couple of notes of additional programs that are not receiving bill funds, but continue to play a huge role in the protection and restoration of watersheds. First, I was just mentioning the estuary programs, and there's a related program called the Urban Waters Federal Partnership. This federal partnership reconnects urban communities, particularly those that are overburdened and economically distressed, with their waterways by improving coordination among federal agencies. The partnership collaborates with community-led revitalization efforts to improve our nation's water systems and promote their economic, environmental, and social benefits. In New Jersey, there are 2 of these locations, the Passaic River and the Delaware River. Activities at these locations are led by what we call Urban Waters Ambassadors and include everything from education and recreation to flooding and restoration to water quality and housing and more. So again, I highly encourage you to engage with these programs to join in on the tremendous work that they're doing. Another significant source of funding for watersheds in New Jersey is the Non-Point Source Pollution Control Program, the Clean Water Act Section 319 program that Anika mentioned. EPA has estimated that over 70% of all waterborne pollution comes from non-point sources across the United States. The Non-Point Source program is in the process of revising its guidelines so we can address some of those problems. And as Anika mentioned, we provide $2.8 million annually to New Jersey to address non-point source pollution. The Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, Together with the bill, and it also includes bold provisions that give EPA resources to combat climate change and provide more assistance to communities that are struggling for their fair share of resources. The Inflation Reduction Act will tackle climate change, reduce harmful air pollution, advance environmental justice, and save families money on their energy bills. It'll help us move faster and further than ever before to confront the pressing environmental challenges we face. The IRA creates a climate and environmental justice block grant program to support community-led projects in disadvantaged communities and provide funding for community organizations working on the front lines to address decades of environmental pollution and damage. To help these underserved and overburdened communities across the country and to help them access funds, including the historic investments to advance environmental justice, EPA announced the selection of 16 Environmental Justice Thriving Communities Technical Assistance Centers, which thankfully we just call TIC-TACs, so I don't have to say that tongue twister over and over again. So establishing these TIC-TACs across the nation will ensure that communities can access benefits from the groundbreaking investments in clean air, clean water, and our clean energy future. For New Jersey, the local EJ TIC-TAC selected is We Act for Environmental Justice. The We Act TIC-TAC can help underserved communities gain access to grant and funding opportunities so that they're better positioned to advance and address environmental, climate, and energy justice issues. They also offer training and technical assistance to build capacity for navigating the admittedly complex grant application systems, writing strong grant proposals, effectively manage grants, and engaging in environmental and energy justice decision-making. They've created a website and an email newsletter, as well as an online intake form for easy access to their services, and I encourage you to sign up. I know you know this, but it warrants repeating. This is a very exciting, historic time for investments in infrastructure and a keen focus on environmental justice especially. Those coupled with the gravity of climate change make this a very weighty time to do our work. But we know that this is a very challenging time as well. Managing the meteoric rise in federal investments is tough and tests the best laid plans. Experience has demonstrated that partnerships and collaboration, local, state, federal, public, private, can make this work. And we're committed to working with you to make this work, and our communities will be better for it. On behalf of EPA, I want to thank you for what you do every day to advance access to clean and safe water for all of our communities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rick. That was great. I probably have some questions. But now I'm going to introduce Steve Tambini, the Executive Director of the DRBC. And if we can bring up his slides, we'll be there.
I'm going to probably,
And then you should
I don't
be.
know if I'm going to be able to see it there. My glasses don't do well there. Can I take this off? Does it come out? Yes. Okay, unlike the prior two speakers, my friends and colleagues at EPA and New Jersey DEP, I have no money to give out. That's not what we do. In fact, I was telling Mike, I don't know if I fit in this presentation. He said, talk about whatever you do there. It's all good, it's all regional. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna talk a little bit about the regional collaboration of Watershed. First, I do wanna thank Mike for the invitation and congratulate the Watershed Institute on the wonderful work that you do and your anniversary, so thank you. So let's get into it. We're going to talk a little bit about the basin itself, Delaware Basin, the DRBC. I learned this morning already that people have no clue what the DRBC is, most people. I got asked, are you the bridge people? Are you the ferry people? I'm like, no, we're the water people, remember? We're the basin people. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what we do. I'll fly pretty high past that. Spend most of my time on regional planning and coordination, really just touching on some examples, because we really do a lot, even though we have a small staff. Hopefully we'll have some time for discussion as well. So where do we start? I want to start, is there any way we can take the lights down a little bit? Is that possible? So I'm going to start with the headlines, and This one's not a good one, from a couple of years ago, Politico, how millions of people ended up with toxic chemical in their water. Talks about New Jersey's largest drinking water plant down in the Delaware estuary, down across from Philadelphia. How did they get 1,4-dioxane in their drinking water? And with some effort by Pennsylvania DEP, New Jersey DEP, and a lot of effort by the DRBC tracking down 1,4-dioxane, we found out what the answer was. It was coming from Pennsylvania. It was coming from the Lehigh River. It was coming from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Well, how does that happen? You know how it happens. Water doesn't care about any of these political boundaries. It doesn't care about anything except the water cycle. We saw that earlier in Dan Van Ab's talk, right? That's what it cares about, the hydrologic cycle. And that's what the DRBC, when it was established, again, EPA is amazing, DEP is amazing, DRBC was there before then, but when we were established on a watershed basis. We were established on the basis of these watersheds and subwatersheds, understanding that it needs to be managed collectively, collaboratively, and regionally. But in your own peril, don't ignore political boundaries. I mean, let's face it. I work for 4 states in the federal government, and we have to collaborate and work together to achieve what we want to achieve collectively for the basin community. So yes, that's the basin, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, and part of New York. And the other complexity about the basin is that, yes, if you spend time in the Delaware River Basin, in many parts of the basin, you're going to say, this is natural, this is beautiful, this is pristine. But as I've said many times, it's also engineered and managed, and it's decreed. It is decreed that water can leave the basin. The Supreme Court decree said New York City can take half of its water supply for 4.7 million people out of the Delaware River Basin. And that's a big deal. And New Jersey can take through the DNR Canal up to 100 million gallons a day for 1.1 million people out of the basin. And that's a big deal. And why is it a big deal? Because while that may look like a pretty big, pretty picture, when you think about the size of that watershed, it's really not that big. Compared to the population it serves, about 5% of the US population, including the city of New York, is served by the Delaware River Basin, but the watershed itself is relatively small, so at times there's some real stress on this watershed. So that's the basin. Now, again, I work for a water resource management agency. I'm going to spend a lot of time, not a lot of time, because it's going to go quickly, on clean water and sustainable water, but we don't have clean water and sustainable water without healthy watersheds. They're interconnected. And yes, there are a zillion different needs and challenges, and we have to collaborate to address them all. So all those little dots up there, I'm not going to touch on all of them, but I will touch on some of them, and we'll get into it. So where do we start? A little bit about the DRBC. So yes, we're a very unique federal interstate agency formed in 1961. The commissioners of the Delaware Basin Commission are the governors of the 4 basin states. The current chair is Governor Phil Murphy. Very proud that New Jersey wholeheartedly supports the DRBC, and I was glad to see Sean here, had a nice conversation with him. The federal government is also a member, but it's not an elected official. It happens to be the North Atlantic Division Commander. He represents all the federal agencies. So even though we report to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, we interact with EPA all the time. We interact with the National Park Service, USGS, NOAA, you name it. As long as it's got water in it, we're interacting with them as well when it comes to the Delaware River Basin. We are formed on what's known as a compact. And a compact is 2 things. One, it is law. It happens to be both concurrent federal and state law. So at the same time, can you imagine this happening today? It never happened today. But in 61, all the 4 states at the same time, through their legislatures, passed a law about this compact, and the federal government did it at the same time as well. And again, a little bit of history, John Kennedy signed this in the first year of his administration, which is unbelievable, actually. So anyway, it recognizes the Delaware Basin as a regional asset with local, state, and national interests. It says you need to develop a comprehensive plan, and we do that, but we do that with our state and federal partners. It's all about collaboration. And we shall develop and effectuate plans, policies, and projects, regulations, plans. I'm going to talk about some of those things. With the unofficial mission, it's not in the compact, but this is what we say it is, and we believe it, and we live it every day, to manage, protect, and improve the shared water resources of the Delaware Basin for the benefit of, 14 million people, but we'll talk about that in a second. our staff is relatively small. So how do we do that with a small staff of professional engineers, planners, and scientists, about 39 people, small budget? We're located in this township right down the road in West Trenton, New Jersey, but we certainly go all over the basin. We do that with a lot of collaboration. Our comprehensive plan is not a comprehensive plan without our state and federal partners. So you might ask me a question about, well, what are you doing with flood regulations? Well, we count on our states in many cases to do some of the things that we don't have the capacity to do. We do that to try and achieve water security for 14 million people in those 4 states. The 4 corners of that, and I'll touch on some of these, have to do with water quality, making sure there's clean water for the environment, for ecosystems, for people, making sure that all communities share equally in the benefits of that resource and have affordable and clean, safe water, making sure that water is available for, again, the economy, for the environment, for everything, and making sure that we have a resilient system. And what does that mean? That means dealing with the extremes, floods, droughts, and the threat of climate change, and I'm going to touch on some of those as well. So this is an overview of the program. Again, I'm spending a little more time on the DRBC just because, again, most people don't know what we do. I could spend all day talking about all these, and I can assure you that every one of these elements has an element of collaboration, regional collaboration, not only with our state and federal partners, but with stakeholders. We have a full series of advisory committees that we deal with stakeholder people as well. But our management programs generally around planning, operations. We do actually release water at times to keep flow in the river. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. We have a regulatory program. We don't duplicate what our states do. We supplement it. In fact, we have a streamlined program with New Jersey where it's called One Process, One Permit. We work in the background for projects, but we do have a regulatory program to see that we implement our comprehensive plan, and we certainly do a lot of science. Today, I'm going to just touch on a few of these. Again, if you had more time, we could spend more. I'm going to touch on salt from a couple of different perspectives and water quality, and I'm going to touch on climate change as well. I'm going to spend at a very rapid pace some discussion of some of our planning work that we're doing on sustainable water supply and touch on flood protection. And if you have questions on anything else, I'll be around for a little bit. But how am I going to do that? I'm going to talk quickly and I'm going to fly fast and I'm not going to go deep. So if you have other questions, there's probably people in my office who know more about this stuff than me anyway. So it's all good. So let me start with water quality. And we manage the resource in a way that's to some degree similar to New Jersey. So New Jersey's got special protection water classification. We do as well. So think of it this way. The sovereign part of the Delaware River for New Jersey is New Jersey, right? That's a New Jersey water. If you cross the bridge between New Hope and Lambertville, at some point it's Pennsylvania water, at some point it's New Jersey water. But if New Jersey decided, okay, the waters in the Delaware River need to be protected, and we're going to pass a law that says on this side it's special protection water is protected, but if Pennsylvania doesn't, is it? No, right? There's no concrete barrier that runs down the middle. The water mixes together. So we've collaboratively come together and said, we're going to declare all this pristine, excellent water quality from Trenton upward, meaning all the 9 tidal portion of the river to be special protection classified. And what does that mean? That means our policy and our regulations actually require, number one, that we understand what existing water quality is, and we define that in regulation. We take samples and we say, okay, we're not just going to set an end-of-pipe standard or a criteria in the river. We're going to understand what this river is. And then we're going to make sure that water quality doesn't change. There'll be no measurable change in existing water quality except towards natural conditions. What does that mean? If someone comes in with a new wastewater plant, they've got to meet that condition. Even if it's somewhere far off in the tributaries, that water will still flow to the river. So we're providing an opportunity to make sure that that river stays at existing water quality. It's a very strict anti-degradation law that supports the Clean Water Act. Well, the good news is, because we also assess what's going on in the river, how do we know it's working? Well, we go and take samples every once in a while. We do an assessment, and it's working. Most of the special protection water assessment found no measurable change except what you would expect. chlorides, salt, freshwater salinization syndrome, right? It's not a Delaware River only issue. If you were to look at other point, you're looking at Trenton here, from a USGS gauge. If we looked at the other USGS gauges or all the work that we've done in the river and other tributaries, you're seeing it everywhere. Road salts are creating salinity increases throughout the basin and really throughout the country. What are we doing about it at the Delaware River Basin? A couple of things. So we've increased our monitoring. That's not what's on this slide. We've done more focused monitoring to make sure that we have a better understanding, good data. But we've also created, again, back to collaboration, a working group. Has an acronym, Salinity Impacts Freshwater Toxicity Working Group, that was formed in 2022 through one of our water quality advisory committees. And that group is working through the issues of salinization. The Wetlands Institute is on it, as are our colleagues at Pennsylvania DEP, New Jersey DEP, Delaware Estuary. Even some folks who are outside the basin, Brick Utilities, are on it as well. And I heard at the next meeting, Maryland and Virginia coming in because they've got some road salt programs that they're going to share as well with us. So that's just an example of collaboration, example of water quality advisory committees that are leading, hopefully, to positive change. Maybe best management practice, maybe regulatory approaches, but this is the first step in trying to deal with that issue. Let me switch gears. We were talking about special protection waters. Upstream from Trenton is the non-tidal portion. From Trenton down to the Atlantic Ocean, 133 miles. The river, the main stem river, is 330 miles. It's always an interstate boundary on both sides. I'm throwing facts at you, but it's 330 miles from Trenton, River Mile 133, down to the Atlantic Ocean, River Mile 0, it's tidal. Does that mean it's salt water? No. It means that there's a saltwater-freshwater interface there. There's no dams on the Delaware. The ocean wants to go up, right, seek its level, but there's a lot of fresh water coming down, right, except when there's droughts. So that's the setting. So part of our objective is to make sure that at times there's enough fresh water going down the Delaware at Trenton to keep that salt front where it should be. Typically the salt front where the freshwater saltwater interface hangs out around the Delaware Memorial Bridge, Wilmington, Delaware, what we call River Mile 70. But when Mother Nature is stingy, and there's a drought, and there has been, I know has been a while, what happens is that salt front wants to make its way upstream. That's not good for a lot of reasons. There's industrial intakes that it could impact. More importantly, there's drinking water intakes as well. So the other issue that's going on and that we know is happening is sea levels are rising. Again, I could present a lot of data. It's not debatable. The seas are rising. But so we know if you look at the top prism there, and that's just a very rough representation of the estuary. Again, River Mile 133 is Trenton. That's freshwater coming downstream. River Mile 0 is the Atlantic Ocean. Cape May and Lewis, Delaware. Cape May, New Jersey, Lewis, Delaware. You've got this, mixing going back and forth, tidal influence. But for the most part, you've got fresh water, and somewhere, like I said, down by the Delaware Memorial Bridge, most time, you've got this interface. With sea level rise, all else being equal, what's going to happen? You know what's going to happen. With land subsidence and sea level rise, that saltwater freshwater interface is going to want to push up. It's going to want to threaten further upstream those issues. So again, one issue is drinking water. You've got an ecosystem out there that might be used to salinity, right? You've got aquatic issues. You've got potential commercial fisheries. You've got oyster industry. Again, you've got industrial and commercial intakes. You've got a lot of different issues. So the DRBC is studying this issue in terms of, okay, if we look at right now, again, I'm going to try and orient you a little bit, go 90 degrees and look at the river miles now, River Mile 70 to River Mile 150. There's the head of tide at River Mile 133. There's the drinking water intakes at River Mile 110. During the drought record, 8 years in a row of below normal precipitation in the 1960s. 1964, salt front on an instantaneous level got up to River Mile 102. The drinking water intakes at River Mile 110, that's pretty darn close. 100, we measure the salt front on a 7-day average. So again, I'm flying quickly, but that's the number. In 1970s and 1980s, DRBC, with its state and federal partners, with New York City, put together a drought management plan, said we can do better than this. We can control the salt front through a management system, putting in flow targets, building reservoirs, releasing water from those reservoirs. Since that time, we've have had a maximum sulfurant location of river mile 90. So that's protection. That's a good thing. What's going to happen with sea level rise? So we don't do the sea level rise projections. There's a lot of good, smart folks out there doing them. There's plenty more than this. This is all going to come out soon in a report from DRBC, but you're getting a preview. We looked at sea level rise projections from DENREC, University of Delaware, NOAA, and Rutgers. You can see the suite of projections. I mean, again, I'm not going to go into the reasons why. I think you need to know that there's different emission scenarios, there's different probability scenarios, there's a whole host of projections. But we analyzed 0.3, 0.5, 0.8, and 1 meter of sea level rise for the year 2060. We also looked at 2100, but just to keep things clear here, let's just look at 2060, and what does that mean? The first two are what you saw on the last slide. Again, we went from the worst case scenario of 100, sometimes 102 on an instantaneous, down to 90. With a half a meter sea level rise, we're losing that protection to 104. With 1 meter of sea level rise, 101, we're going back to 104. Again, a little bit dangerous. We did a whole bunch of other scenarios. Again, the report's coming out soon. I'm just giving you a sneak peek at it. That's not necessarily a good story. How do we deal with that issue? Well, there's many ways we could potentially look at in terms of mitigating sea level rise conditions. One thing that we're looking at as a water resource management agency is, do we need more fresh water during low periods? Where do we get fresh water when there's no rain? Reservoirs. Do we need potentially more storage in the basin to deal with that? So we did a study in 2023. I have a big capital may there. We haven't made a determination that we need additional storage, but we're at this point looking at opportunities. Okay, if we needed more storage in the future, where can we get it? So before you get all nervous that we're going to dam up rivers everywhere in New Jersey, that's not what rose to the top here. Most of them, number one, are in Pennsylvania. Number two, almost all of them are quarries. So if a quarry comes to the end of its useful life, potentially we can repurpose that for storage. There's some other options in there as well, but if you want to download this, you may. So if I have time, I'm going to just touch on another planning effort that we're looking at under the question of water availability. And believe me, on the water quality front, I popped up a lot of stuff there. And, we are doing a lot of work in terms of emerging contaminants and PFAS and monitoring and microplastics and what is it? I'm not a scientist, but 6 PPDQ tire run. So we're doing a lot of emerging contaminant work as well. I just don't have enough time to go into all of it at this point. I just want to give one more example of regional planning and collaboration, and this is about, are we going to have enough water during a repeat of the drought of record? That is the standard that was set by the commission and by others, meaning, again, the states adopted it as well. For this particular basin, we should look at the drought of record. Interesting question. Is the drought of record the worst drought? Well, if you don't have a record, you don't really know, except if you cut a tree down, you look at it, the answer might be no. And the other question is, what's going to happen in the future with climate change? And the answer might be no. So again, we're looking at some of that as well with our sea level rise study. But based on that criteria, what are the water demands going to be? Do we have enough groundwater? Do we have enough surface water? We haven't answered all those questions yet, but let me touch on the first two because we have finished those studies. Interestingly enough, we published a study in 2021 saying that the water withdrawal for the basin has likely peaked. Water withdrawals are coming down. We expect that to continue to go down by about 1 billion gallons per day by 2060. Why is that? The pink or the orange up there, whatever it is, reddish pink, that's thermoelectric power. You might think public water supply is the most water used in the basin. It's not. It's thermoelectric power generation. Thermoelectric power demand is coming down, as you can see. Public water supply is the bottom. That's coming down as well as water efficiency gets into homes. And we see that across the country. That's not just a basin issue. So that's the takeaway from this one. From a consumptive water use basis, this is water demand. I don't have a slide on consumptive water use. What does consumptive water use mean? It means water taking out of the hydrologic cycle in the basin, but doesn't return to the basin. So if we take that water and ship it to New York City, that water's never coming back. If we put that into a cooling tower and evaporates, it might come back, but for the most part, the wind might take it somewhere else. Consumptive water use is expected to be the same. And we care about consumptive water use, especially during drought planning, because a lot of this water does return on consumptive use. We're concerned about it. Anyway, The second issue is on groundwater. Again, I'm just really flying high at this point. This was a study that we published in 2022. If you look at 2060, what we did was compare the groundwater availability to the groundwater usage on a subwatershed level. So here's the takeaway on this. If you look at all the white subwatersheds, that's a good thing. That says less than 25% of what's available is being used. So if this thing lit up in red, now the red line there is a Pennsylvania groundwater protected area. It's got nothing to do with the legend. But if this thing lit up in red, that would be a bad thing. It would say, okay, we're taking too much groundwater out. Yellow would be a bad thing. We're getting close. We've got a couple of blues, greens, not bad. Overall, good story in terms of groundwater. We didn't fully evaluate the confined aquifers in New Jersey just because of science, methodology, that's a separate issue. But what this tells us is groundwater, generally good space. Groundwater is not the big use in the basin. It's less than 10%. Most of it is surface water. We're doing a study right now. You can see a lot of the surface water withdrawals to evaluate the same thing. How much water does a watershed or a subwatershed provide? What's being taken out in that subwatershed? Is it enough to maintain that, or are we going to pop up more red flags on a surface water basis? This study's not done yet. We're doing most of the work right now in Pennsylvania, not New Jersey, to make sure that our modeling is good. We've got some complexities here due to reservoirs, but bottom line is this is good work. We need to figure out, if there's water available on an ongoing basis, since we kind of know what the demands are going to look like in 2060. Just shifting a little bit to one flood issue, I just want to give you another preview of what's coming out soon. New Jersey, I think, is already taking care of this. There are new intensity, duration, frequency curves that are out there that take into account future emission scenarios. Again, we're standing in New Jersey. New Jersey took care of this, but we did it for the entire Delaware Basin. We closed the gap. We use the same research and scientists. So the tool that New Jersey has in terms of providing practitioners with a view of what climate change does to runoff and how they can use that for planning, we're providing that tool on a basin-wide scale as well. So I'd just end and say, again, it is about collaboration. What we do, look, I'm proud of what we do. We have a small staff. We do a lot of great research and science. We work very closely with our state and federal partners. We do. People come to us all the time and say, well, if it's in the basin, it's yours. Well, number one, if you heard Sean today, look, I like to talk positively as well, but it comes to a limit where you have the authority to do certain things and you don't. So that's one issue. The other issue is where does it make sense to do some of these things best? So we find our niche on interstate waters. We find our niche on broad regional planning issues, and where we can apply that to make sure that we're attacking some of these issues has the best benefit, we think. So thank you for your time. Certainly hang around for little questions, and hopefully I left a little bit of time for that.
All right, I'm going to take host's prerogative. Talking about collaboration and working closely with the states, Steve. The Commissioner mentioned the Water Supply Master Plan coming out. Is that something that DRBC worked with, and how does that influence yours work? It should be on.
So in both directions. So we work with them on providing input into their plans in the Delaware Basin, and I think you'll see some of that work. Again, I think their Water Supply Master Plan has got a certain focus, but we share with them all the time. We attend the Water Supply Advisory Council meetings, and likewise, when we do our work in terms of water availability, we can't do that without DEP. Number one, the data comes from there. We transfer a lot of data. Again, really smart people work on that, to move that data and then analyze it and post-process it. So, within the Delaware Basin, we have a good connection between staff at DRBC and New Jersey DEP. I'll say likewise in Pennsylvania as well. I served on the Pennsylvania Statewide Water Supply Master Plan Advisory Council, the Statewide Advisory Council. My staff served on regional councils and topic councils as well. So, I think collaboration is the key. I mean, we don't do this in isolation.
If people have questions, we do have a microphone. Please get up. And while people are getting there, I'm going to ask another question, and I'm going to pose this to you, Rick. So I'm going to force you to get to the table. So you, in your talk, you mentioned that a significant portion of the pollution that the country is experiencing is non-point. When you talk non-point, I know a lot of people conflate non-point and MS4 and roll that in. When you were saying it's a significant portion is non-point, what were you meaning?
Sure. So for the most part, we can easily say that discharges from sewage treatment plant, certainly a point source. At the other end of the spectrum, sort of the other, typical non-point source runoff from farmland, atmospheric deposition, even potentially in-place contaminated sediments that are contributing pollution. So somewhere in the middle is stormwater. And the way EPA defines it, if the stormwater is subject to controls under a MS4 permit, it is point source in nature. If it's not subject to an MS4 permit, it's non-point source in nature. And I think even there's some room for negotiation, particularly when it comes to making funds available. So I talked about the state revolving loan funds, so huge amount of money. We typically think of using those funds to construct sewage treatment plants, maybe to control stormwater, to control combined sewer overflows or CSOs. But there were other provisions in the Clean Water Act in the 1987 amendments that established those state revolving loan funds, which said that once a state has met its point source needs, it can use the SRF funds to control non-point source pollution, as long as the BMPs were specified in the EPA-approved non-point source management plan. And secondly, those funds could be used to implement national estuary program plans, this comprehensive conservation and management plans for each of the 28 estuaries of national significance that EPA has approved. And I think some states have chosen, and they've come up with some innovative ways using a portion of their SRF funds to make loans or grants to eligible entities to control non-point source pollution and to implement CCMPs for estuaries.
All right, and I wanted to point out, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this surprised me a couple of years ago when I learned it. So every town in New Jersey has an MS4 permit, has that point source permit. That's not true throughout the country. There are areas throughout the country that do not have an MS4 permit, and that would be by and large a more non-point source situation.
So not every place in the country is subject to an MS4 permit. That's absolutely true.
That surprised me.
Thanks both Rick and Steve for your presentations. My question is actually for you, Rick. On one of your slides was the water resource management slide, program slide. You had a lot of different categories. And I didn't see anything about protecting aquatic life in the Delaware Basin. Could you speak to that?
Sure, I think that was for me. Thanks.
Yes.
So, as I said, there's no question that part of our charge in terms of setting water quality standards includes protecting aquatic life. So as I flew by pretty quickly the subject of water quality, I didn't spend a lot of time on that particular issue. I spent a lot of time on salt in this particular talk. What's going on right now, if you read the headlines coming out of Philadelphia, the EPA is in the process of upgrading the water quality standards for an aquatic life use in the Delaware River estuary, specifically at the urban part of the estuary. DRBC has been working on that issue and providing the science to that issue for many, many years. DRBC sets water quality standards generally. Again, in this case, EPA has taken the lead, but generally sets interstate water quality standards for all the designated uses, including protection of aquatic life, including recreation, including public drinking water. So our mission does include the protection of aquatic life. There's no question about it. the work that's being done right now by EPA, if you read their notice of publication, they've cited us 20 times because we did 5 years of science to support that the designated use could be increased, that it was attainable, how it could get there. In this case, reduction in non-point source pollution, ammonia sources that are coming from wastewater treatment plants, which by the way, come from us. If you think it's some big bad industry doing it, there's industry out there, yes, and there's legacy issues, but people have waste and people's waste need to be treated. And we've done an excellent job of restoring the estuary, but we're not quite done yet. So the commission is committed to a host of supporting all the designated uses, including aquatic life uses. So I just didn't go through all the examples that what we work on. But the short answer is yes, we do it.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right. Thank you so much for that answer, Director Tambini. I wanted to follow up and actually a shout out to the Watershed Institute for their partnership with DRBC as well as many of the other organizations you cited, Director Tambini, on runoff from salt. So obviously our winters have changed, but we still get a lot of snow. And obviously the impact of salt in our drinking water is a huge issue. And obviously the networking that the Watershed Institute is doing is really a wonderful example. We'd love to be able to scale up across the state. Director Tambini, I wanted to follow up on just the sneak peek preview you were talking about on what the future looks like. And obviously 2060 is not that far away, right? And when we're talking about our upper projections of 0.8 to 1 meter, right, that's 3 feet, that means a lot if you're on the island in Trenton. It means a lot, obviously, if you're in Creamer Hill in Camden. I wanted you just to talk a little bit more. You were framing climate impacts around the salt line, which obviously is kind of an existential threat. And seeing that getting to 104 when 110 is the dividing line, I'm sure that keeps you up at night. I wanted you just to talk a little bit more about the work of the Advisory Committee on Climate Change, and then specifically just the most recent meeting in December, and just the collaboration that committee has, and just what your hope for the DRBC is using that committee to kind of address some of these challenges, right? Because as you noted in your presentation, it's not water use, that's the highest, or drinking water that's the highest use. It's thermoelectric, which essentially is power plants. Some of them are retired, like the Hudson generating station, the Mercer generating station on Duck Island. Some are still very much active, like the former Portland generating station right across from Belvedere on the Pennsylvania side. So love to hear just more on that.
Yeah, so I think you started off by asking me to predict the future, so I won't do that.
Yeah.
I think part of our role as a commission, part of our role is, to do science to model the potential future. And for this particular example, what we've done is we've looked at a range that was developed by others. So again, it's not that we're picking one. If you were to ask me, what do I think, where that number is going to be, I couldn't even answer you, to be honest with you. I think there's smarter people looking at that issue in terms of the probability. I do know that within that range that I showed, some of the science does give some likelihood of, and so whether it's 3 feet or whether it's 1.5 feet, I don't know. For now, we're in the science part of it. But you asked about the Advisory Committee on Climate Change. So again, I blew past some of DRBC, but we are so lucky that the compact, really, there were some smart people put that thing together. And one thing they said is, hey, you ought to get these advisory committees together to help you be informed to make policy decisions. So DRBC over the years has put together a series of advisory committees. The most recent one is what's called the Advisory Committee on Climate Change. And we're so fortunate to have representatives from all our 4 basin states, City of New York, City of Philadelphia, Cornell University, University of Pennsylvania, Rutgers University, University of Delaware, NOAA, National Park Service, business and industry. We haven't challenged them enough yet because, we're in the process of saying, okay, from a DRBC perspective, what should be the priority we look at from a climate change. So at the last meeting, what he's referring to is the commission is considering a climate action plan similar to what New Jersey did, similar, but when you think about New Jersey's climate action plan, it really leans very heavily into the energy space, as it should, right? It should lean heavily into the energy space. Keep in mind, our jurisdiction is water. Ours is going to lean very much into the water space. So we're doing a lot of science already on the drought flow management issues. But as Doug mentioned, he's the only one that calls me Director Tambini. I don't know why, but he can call me Steve, but he does in lighter moments. But there's a lot of other issues as well with rising seas. Obviously, you've got tidal influence flooding, you've got neighborhood flooding, you've got all sorts of other issues that are out there. We're going to continue to lean on our Advisory Committee on Climate Change. Number one, to try and prioritize how we deal with these issues across the basin. Number two, potentially to get funding. You know, I'm not bringing my small violin here to say, you know, I need more funding to do this, but like any agency, we do. You know, when Rick talked about the Delaware Estuary getting $990 million a year out of the BIL, that wasn't to us. That was the Delaware Estuary program. Now, we competitively got a little bit of money out of their program. So in any event, I'm not sure I answered your question, but I think I'm just getting there. Was there a third question in there somewhere?
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up is coming out of the December meeting, you know, what are the steps you mentioned the strategic climate action plan for the commission, but, you know, what are the steps you kind of see for coming out of the advisory climate change
So we expect this
committee,
year
and
that
then how can you link to the decision-making that DRBC is doing and impact, including the climate impacts?
we expect that the commissioners this year will at least take action on the concept of a climate action plan for the basin. I would say that while everyone brings different interests to the table, what we continue to hopefully get input on from the advisory committee and from the general public is the prioritization of those issues, because we all know that that climate change is here. We all know that it's impacting the water cycle. As an agency and someone who runs the agency, I just have to be sure that I'm putting the resources towards the things that are the highest priority, at least from the commissioner's perspective. So I think the commissioner is going to take up the climate action plan this year. The advisory committee on climate change has looked at it already. The next steps would be to, at some point, it's going to go to the general public as well. I think that's the answer to your question. It's going to go to the general public for comment also. Then the commissioners will take up action on it.
All right, thank you very much. I hate to do this, Heather. The next session starts in 3 minutes. So Anika, Rick, Steve, thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. At the end of the day, please drop off